far. Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. I love turning boxes. I haven't turned one for a while, so I thought I'd turn a new one. So I picked up a piece of dogwood, and that was a disaster. I showed that in a recent video. So I picked up another piece of wood that I thought was cherry. Turns out, quickly realized it was walnut, which is fine. But I turned this nice little lid with a insert lid, which is the tenon on the lid in the recesses in the base of the box, which is not as common as most other boxes. So let me show you how to turn one. I'm going to use my spindle roughing gouge to get this round. Drop the handle. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, lift the handle to cut. I said this was cherry. This is walnut. Not what I expected, but that'll work. Over, tighten it up again. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and measure what I think is going to be the bottom. I've already looked at the grain and decided this was going to be the top. That's why I chucked this in first. And that's where we're going to turn it off. But before we do that, we're going to bring this up and we're going to go ahead and put a tenon on here. You know, I've got a choice of several parting tools. I could use a thicker parting tool, but that wastes too much. I could use a thin parting tool, but when I go this deep, it takes more leverage than I've got with this smaller handle. So I'm going to use a 1/8 inch, which is somewhat of a compromise that I think I've got enough leverage here that I'll be able to handle this. So let's back this off a little bit so it rests on the flat, and we're going to go straight in. Then drop it for a peeling cut. I'm just going to alternate back and forth. We'll turn it off. I've got it down to just a stem, so I can just twist it off. I've got a little bit of a defect there, but I don't think it's going to bother me because I'm going to turn that over. Now I'm going to switch to a spindle gouge. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch because I want a little bit of meat. Get rid of that little nib in the middle. And now let's start straight in. Back. Now I have to be mindful of my design on how this top is going to fit. Before I go too far. To actually sketched out a full-size drawing. This is going to be an inset lid. I need to come down about 1/4 inch. So I've drawn a line here. I need to come actually a little bit further in than that to be a. That's pretty close, okay. And I'm going to come in. Taper it in just ever so slightly. Now I can finish hollowing and I have a feel for how far to go. I don't want to. I've got to leave room for the top, and actually I can, because of the tenon, I could use all of this. I can use the tenon, so I want to go that deep. So I'll just keep checking it. So I've got about 3/8 of an inch. So I've got a little ways to go. Now frequently, whoops, slipped on me here. Frequently I would use a scraper, but I think with this walnut that I'm getting a nice clean cut, so I think we'll leave it at that and leave the rest of it to sanding. I do have a bit of a rough edge here, so I need to figure out how to clean that rough edge up. I've got a couple of possibilities. I could come in with a skew, or I could slice in just a little bit. Since it sticks out just a little bit, I think I'm going to slice in with a detail gouge in order to get a slightly concave, so when it rests, it'll rest on the outside. So let's do that. Just come in, anchor the tool, brace it, come straight in, and then slightly angle it out just the tiniest little bit. Come back here. Okay, nice, fairly clean cut. The lid is going to have a slight bead here. I think I'll go ahead and turn that bead. Go a little bit. I don't have a backstop and I'm cutting to the chuck, so I think I'm going to quit right there. I've got to sand this before I take it off, so let me do that and then I'll come back to you. I've got this sanded, I've got it polished with abrasive, well actually rather very fine scratches. Now I'm going to come in here with my texturizing Dremel burr tool. Speed of maybe 500. And I'm going to come in almost to the center. And slowly move it over. Just so when they open the box, they'll get a nice little surprise. And now I'm going to come back and frame that point tool. Just come in on the inside and the outside. Then maybe a little bead come across, come back in, come across. Use a little of this Scotch abrasive pad, clean up any ripples, and I think that looks like a nice little detail I'm happy with. We're going to go ahead and put the box body in here, because we're going to use this as a jam chuck to put the lid in, so I want to carefully sneak up on that. I probably ought to do that with a pair of dividers. Now I have people tell me that the safest way to do this, instead of the way that I do it, which is coming across like this, is measure half the distance, but then I've got to come over here, measure it in millimeters, and might be better, but I've gotten used to this and I can safely do it, so we're going to do it. We're going to make sure we cut right on center and only touch this side. Keep the speed down to a reasonable level, less than 1,000. And now we're just going to come in. And that's pretty close. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and come in with a box scraper to open that up just a little bit. I'm going to do the jam chucking before we do anything else. So I've got a box scraper with a flat, and I'm just going to come in here. I can probably relieve a little bit of that with a spindle gouge. Don't want it rubbing in the middle. And then we're going to take it easy in that we're going to come inside that line and test. And like any box, we got to keep coming back with that test. We don't want to take any chances of getting it too big, because I've got to jam chuck it. Almost. Detail gouge, spindle gouge. Now let me think a little bit about my profile. Okay, so my bead is actually here is a overhang, so I can come in here just a little bit. Bring that down. Be careful cutting away with that tailstock cord, it'll come flying out. That's probably close enough. And now I want to come in just inside of that bead, slightly rounding it over here. Be mindful of the chuck. About the final shape in a little while, but I can get pretty doggone close. Okay, that's beginning to look good. Now I've got to figure out how I want to handle a band right here. So I'm going to put a bead right there. Mark the whole width of this band. Here, a little bit wider. That's going to be the inside of the band, and I'm going to put a bead on the outside. And then a bead on this side. The bead will be proud on each side. A little bit. Now that I got these two beads roughly the same size, I want to get this one the same size as that. So I need to take it down just a little bit. I think that's beginning to look the way I want it. Now we'll just round it over just a little bit, and we'll really refine that with a piece of sandpaper. Now I want to go ahead and finish the lid, so I'm going to start here and start bringing it back. Waste some of this wood away. And I'm just going to use a skew as a negative rake scraper and come in here and bring it around. Sanding will take care of the rest of that, so I'll go ahead and take this little nib off, and I need to drill a hole. I need to think about what size hole I want. Okay, I've decided to go with 3/8 of an inch, so I've got enough glue area to securely hold that knob. I've got to be careful not going too deep or it's going to come all the way through. Then I'll have to worry about making it a design feature. So let's see what we can do. I've got the speed down. Probably ought to turn it up a little bit. I've got to worry about that little dimple coming through. Let's see what we got. Hasn't come through yet. I went ahead and sanded up to 400. Put on a coat of cellulose lacquer sealer. Let that dry for a few seconds. Then I came back with abrasive paste, and I'm real happy with the way that lid looks. I've got to turn the knob for it, so I'm going to set that aside up here. Now we're going to go back to doing the texturing before I do the inside. You know, they say if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I like to texture. I got the texturing tool, so I'm just going to come along here, and I'm going to be using the Sorby micro texturing tool. First, I'm going to come along with not a very aggressive pattern, kind of a orange peel effect, and see how that looks before I go any further with it. Okay, got this all nice and polished, the final finish, because it's hard to get in there with the abrasive wax on the sides without getting it up inside the texturing. So I'm going to use the Sorby micro texture, and we're just going to slow the speed down to about 450. Come up from the bottom. And let's see what it's looking like. I'm liking that detail. Now I can go ahead and finish hollowing. Get the speed up to about 1,000. This makes hollowing just a bit easier. Alright, now there's lots of ways to hollow. I'm going to come in first with this right here at the center. Come down just a little bit. Just come right into the center. But maybe it's time for me to play with one of my carbide tools, so let me get one of those out. I think it makes most sense to use the square carbide tool. Let me get some tools out of the way here. I think it makes most sense to use the square carbide to do the rough hollowing. Let's see how that goes. Got a little bit further to go before I can get to that hole. Just a little bit at a time. Sitting on center. And that makes short order of it, but boy, does it leave a rough surface. Show you the grain tear out here, which is extreme. Extreme. So let's set that aside. And let's switch to a spindle gouge. Come in just like that and spin it out. Let's see if we can't get a cleaner cut. Almost as deep as I want. Let me try the other tool. Now let's bring it back here just a little bit on the wall. Now I need to just clean up this edge here. We've got a little bit of a dimple there at the bottom. Now it's time to sand the inside of this. Okay, taking this out, now it's time to refine the bottom. And I'm going to use a jam chuck for that. So I rummaged around my spindle box. Found this piece of dogwood that had been hollowed out a little bit, and go to the outside here. Well, I don't think I'm going to have to use the dividers. I'm just going to play with it a little bit. It's very close. Okay. The more you turn, the luckier you get. So I'm going to go ahead and use my box scraper. Get the speed up around 1,000. Come in and just taper this down just a little bit. At a slight angle. And I want to fit up close to that bead so it'll register on that bead. And we're going to bring this down just a little bit. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 or 5. Alright, now we're in there. A little bit. That's running true. I'm real happy with that. I'm going to bring up the tailstock to give me a little margin of safety while I take off this tenon. We're going to use the cone center. Tool rest. And the hardest part's going to be refining this curve. Getting rid of this is no problem, but let me go ahead and get rid of some of it. And I'll use a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. This tiny little ring here is a feature. Slightly concave it. Just want to refine that curve a little bit. The easiest way to do that is with a skew. And I'm just going to take this around. Okay, I think I got it. Now all I need to do is finish sanding. Okay, I've taken down, cleaned this up, sanded it, put some sanding sealer on it. Now time to get rid of that nib. Come in there with straight in with a, I think a deep spindle gouge. Speed up a little bit. Nope, that's got to come down. And now let me see what kind of texture I put right there at the very bottom. I think I'll come straight in with this texturing tool and see if I can't get a little bit of a flower. Slow the speed down a little bit. Just off center. And that looks very nice. Let's dress that up just a little bit. And we've got it. So here's the finished box shown here with a maple lid that I turned. I didn't bother to show that in the video. Not terribly complicated. I glued it in with some some epoxy. It has a somewhat loose but not sloppy fit, which most ladies tend to like, and they're the ones that tend to buy these kinds of boxes. If you're interested in a book on turning boxes, I've got links to a couple of good ones underneath the description for this video. This one you can buy used at a reasonable price on Amazon. Similar, the one on Chris Stott's book on 50 designs is a great book, but it's the new price I think is a little bit pricey. But both of those the links are shown below. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.